May I have your attention, please? The following episode of the What's Your Mount Rushmore podcast, hosted by Mark Duvel and John Hanson, contains more vulgarity and naughty words than a normal episode. You've been warned, so please keep your complaints to yourself.
Welcome to What's Your Mount Rushmore podcast with hosts Mark Duvel and John Hanson.
Are you kidding me?
Two old friends and knuckleheads discussing and covering their top 4 choices for any and all topics, making up their Mount Rushmore selections each week. Nothing is off limits. As you listen, remember, we always want to know, what's your Mount Rushmore?
Hey, what's up there, fruitcake?
What's up there, slapdicks? Thanks for joining us. It's the What's Your Mount Rushmore podcast. We're back, and I'm one of the hosts, John Hanson.
I'm the other guy. My name is Mark Duvel. This is an interesting one, kids. So I hope you listen to what our little disclaimer at the top of this episode said to you, because it is very applicable to this episode. We're not kidding. If you're not into vulgarity and the F-bomb, this is probably not going to work for you. And it's not even because of really John and I using the language. It's just unavoidable from the clips we're going to be sharing with you, because this topic is so unique and it's so specific. And yes, we get it. This one might not be for everybody, and that's fine. And the topic we're covering is, like you see in the title, it's the Jerky Boys.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who the Jerky Boys are, I apologize. You missed out. So maybe it's not too late to bring you back into the fold. But the Jerky Boys are this, it's a twosome, it's a duo from Queens, New York. Johnny Brennan and Kamal Ahmed. And they were childhood buddies. And basically, the backstory is this. And if I miss any details, John, obviously just jump in and add it to it.
Yeah.
But Johnny Brennan from Queens, he started recording prank calls that he was making in the late 70s. And it just became kind of a fun thing. Yeah.
He was just a kid.
And who knows what the hell that even means when it comes to like the recording equipment. Like I'd be interested to know more about that. But
I read that it was just a tape recorder. He'd lay on the floor of his bedroom with a tape recorder and kind of hold the phone down so they could record.
It would almost have to be.
Yeah.
I don't know what else would have been available. But so he becomes friends with the other dude, Kamal Ahmed. And they just start doing this as just something fun to do, to kill time, to get laughs. But they did continue to record them. Well, fast forward now into the early 90s, and some of their bootleg calls, prank calls, made its way to the Howard Stern show.
Baba Booey.
And it so fits the Howard Stern show. But it's also kind of what broke them and got them the popularity that led them into now making their prank calls into their first comedy album that was just simply titled The Jerky Boys.
Yeah.
And all it was, I don't know, 25, I'm just guessing, like 25 prank calls on a CD, on an album.
Something like that, yeah.
And I know you and I both owned, along with our friends, we owned these CDs in the 90s.
For sure.
They're so classic, and it's actually something I kind of miss, is the whole concept of comedy albums. They just really don't do this anymore.
As we've kind of discussed a little bit, the whole concept of albums has gone away as well. So I suppose maybe that sort of goes hand in hand. But you're right, comedy albums and records, vinyl records were huge in, way before we were even born, in the 60s and all that. There's a lot of people like Bob Newhart were doing these things, and they were selling all these records as strictly comedy. And funny you mentioned, because they actually, the Jerky Boys were nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Comedy Album, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was their first or their second one, which one it was. They ended up losing out, I think, to Sam Kinison, who had his own comedy album out at the same time. So they definitely had a great impact on me. I'm a couple years older than you are, but we were still in that age where this kind of comedy was very funny to us in that early to mid 90s range. I know they had like a third CD too, but it's really just the first 2 CDs that made the impact. Those are I think all of my bits, the bits that I chose for this list are from their first 2 CDs. I didn't really know much about their later stuff, but yeah, so it was those first 2 that really exploded. And some people, if you're not too familiar with the Jerky Boys, but you do watch Family Guy, there's the character Mort from Family Guy. That's Johnny Brennan that is doing basically the same version of one of his characters from the Jerky Boys, Saul, except on the Family Guy, it's Mort, who's I think he's a pharmacist on that show.
He also is the voice for the bartender on that show, Horace.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a bartender on that show.
Johnny Brennan. I don't think it's as repeating of a character as the pharmacist Mort
Sure.
Goodman.
Yeah. And it sounds just like Saul, too. When I heard that Mort on Family Guy, I'm like, this guy's ripping off Saul, until I realized it was the same voice, the same
the
dude.
same
I'm like,
dude.
okay, I guess he can do it.
And that's kind of the tragic thing about the Jerky Boys is in the early 2000s, they broke up. They no longer were getting along. I'm not going to side with either one of them because I appreciate both their efforts. But the story goes, one of them treated the other one more like a sidekick versus a business partner. And maybe you and I should make note of that so that we don't have a disgusting breakup at some point over the What's Your Mount Rushmore podcast.
Well, let's wait till we put out a comedy album and get nominated for a Grammy before we have our big. Then we'll have to have a behind the music episode about us.
Fueled by raucous riffs and hard partying.
We were dynamite.
We brought the best out of one another, but it also made us crazy at the same time.
The story behind the music.
those one-on-one on TV interviews where you're telling your side of the story and I'm telling mine, and nothing ties together. But what's really cool, I mean, they really are the godfathers of prank calls. They are the ones who just took it to a whole new level where they made a career. They sold 8 million albums in their career.
Oh my God, that's insane.
The Jerky Boys.
Wow.
And it's awesome because they got everyone's attention. Here's a little nugget I thought was hilarious, and I remember hearing this. It's just old news. The band Radiohead, their debut album is named after a Jerky Boy bit. And I'm not going to name the bit right now because I have a feeling it might be on mine or your list. I'm not going to be a spoiler here, but but they literally named their album after the title of a prank call bit from the Jerky Boys. And Radiohead is no joke. Like they're a revered band.
Yeah, we might get into that a little bit more later on with one of my picks. We will see.
A little teaser. But they also did a movie in '95. Now the movie bombed.
You think?
Caravan Pictures presents the motion picture the phone company doesn't want you to see.
Hey, Jerky!
The Jerky Boys, the movie, rated R. Starts Friday, February 3rd at a theater near you.
And it's just a great example of stay in your lane, focus on what got you there, and you didn't need to do a major motion picture. And even though it did have Alan Arkin and Vincent Pastore from The Sopranos was in this movie.
Yeah.
But it did not matter because critics just basically shredded it apart.
Yikes.
So we won't spend a whole lot of time discussing the movie. This is truly about discussing our Mount Rushmore picks of their prank calls. My buddy Mike, he was on the episode of Dog Breeds with us. Like I'll never forget some of the first times we listened to the Jerky Boys CD. We were in stitches because we had never heard anything quite like that before.
Well, what's going to be funny is when we get into it. So let's start our picks because that's going to be funny. If someone's not familiar with the Jerky Boys, they're going to get a kick out of this stuff. And if you are, it'll be like a little nostalgia throwback to the 90s for you.
All right. If you don't mind, should I start?
Go ahead.
All right. I'm going to come out of the gate with one of the classic characters that I know is going to be on our list. Without knowing each other's picks, it's unavoidable because I think he is kind of the premier character that makes up the Jerky Boys, and it's Frank Rizzo.
Yeah, of course.
So this is a Frank Rizzo call, and one of the I'll give you the title of it. It's called Sparky the Clown.
Yeah, let me speak to Sparky.
Now, Sparky the Clown. I guess a little backstory. A lot of what they would do is they would call want ads or answer classifieds in local New York newspapers. So, and they'd call these things and record them, but they'd call them under these characters that they developed. And the Sparky the Clown, Frank Rizzo is calling a newspaper classified because this is a guy basically who does like kids' birthday parties as Sparky the Clown. But when Frank Rizzo calls, he's not looking for an innocent birthday party booking. he's looking to book a clown that will do crazy shit at a very adult party where people are doing just the randomest things that he describes throughout the prank. But I love that his character constantly calls people, and when he's talking to them, he always calls them fruitcakes.
Yes.
Foggy the Clown, how you doing, fruitcake?
And still to this day, the same buddy I'm talking about, Mikey, we still run around calling each other and a lot of people fruitcakes.
Yeah.
And that came from the Jerky Boys.
Yep.
It's stuck all these years later where we still use that phrase.
I love it.
And it's just, again, when it's delivered from that like Italian, New York, Long Island, Jersey, accent, it's fucking hilarious.
With attitude. Yeah. Frank Rizzo has got a lot of attitude, and he's kind of an anus,
Yeah.
Frank Rizzo, listen, I need you for a gig.
Okay.
What do you do? Backflips? You jump up there in a silly suit? What do you do?
Okay, is this for a child's birthday, or?
We got a little scene going over here, a few people laying around the house and shit. It's gonna be like a little funny thing. You can get involved if you want, but we want you to do some juggling, throw some fucking fire bombs up and all that shit.
I don't do any of that.
We're gonna have a big layout there. Got a few broads, few guys. We're gonna do our own thing while the clowns, jumping around, doing fucking backflips.
Yeah, well, we don't do that type. This is mainly for children, is what we do.
I tell you, I got so many fucking crazy people with me at this party, man. I have a few of them jumping off the fucking balcony with you, Sparky.
One of my things that I love about him is that he always asks questions to the person he's on the phone call with, but he never lets them answer.
Yeah.
He always will interrupt them.
Yeah.
It's almost a given. If he asks or suggests something and they start talking, he overpowers it every single time.
That's because their responses aren't what's funny. What's funny is the things that he's saying, and he knows it. So
what he interjects and forces the conversation to become, he has full control of these calls.
Yeah.
And I love it.
It is funny. And Frank Rizzo appears in 2.5 of my 4 picks. And I know you're wondering what that half means. I'll get to that later. I think I might save that one for the end. But he is kind of the driving force. There's actually a bunch of characters. Frank Rizzo is the number one character in the Jerky Boys arsenal, and it is
100%
voiced by Johnny Brennan, and he does such a great job with it. And I think that's why he's so popular with our picks too, because he is the funniest. Let's be honest.
I could listen to, even if only the Jerky Boys was Frank Rizzo.
Yeah,
I'd still want to be doing this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It wouldn't take anything away.
3 of my 4 are Frank Rizzo. The only difference is in one of them, he doesn't say his name, but it's still that voice.
I have a weird one like that too that I'm going to get to at the end. But I'll jump right into my first one then, and we're going to keep with the Frank Rizzo love going. And my bit was simply called Roofing, and it's from their first album. I'm sorry, this was actually on their second album from 1994. And the premise is, again, our buddy Frank Rizzo is calling up a roofing company, and he's talking to this roofing company, but he's not. I mean, he's sort of calling them because he wants to hire them to come out and look at his roof. But it's more about him telling this guy who answers the phone the story of what's currently happening on his roof. And so apparently he hired some cheap, low-budget roofers, and they're up on his roof as he speaks. As he says in the bit, they're up there slapping each other with the hot mops. And when I first heard that line 30 years ago, I lost it. It was friggin' hilarious.
Hell, I just lost it with you saying it.
Yeah.
Roofing.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
All right, look, I got a little problem here. I got some leaks up in the roof there.
Yeah.
I had some guys here yesterday. They tell me this, that, and the other thing. Next thing you know, it rains. I got the rain coming right down inside. I went up there, they're trying to show me this, that. I fired the 2 of the fuckers off on their fucking head. They don't know what the fuck they're doing up there. They were up there with the hot shit, and they're fucking joking. They were up there slapping each other with the hot mops. I don't need this kind of shit. I can't have this shit.
Jiminy Christmas.
All right, Bob, you help me out there.
At 30 years ago, I did not know what the hell hot mops were. And honestly, I'm not sure I still know what they are. But
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because it's funny. And then he's telling this guy, again, he's telling this story to the person on the phone who actually, by the way, all that guy's doing is laughing at him. He's just hysterically laughing at these stories that Frank Rizzo is telling because it is funny. It's funny for us to listen to. It's funny for him to listen to. But he also says that his wife, for some reason, was up on the roof with the hot mops and poking around. He says she was poking around like she knew what she was doing.
My wife's up there poking around. She's making like she knows what the fuck is up. I fired her down onto the fucking car.
What does that even mean? I don't know.
If I remember, he fired a bunch of people off that roof.
He did. He
into the
fired
yard.
them all. We got sick of them slapping each other with the hot mops. I mean, he got up there and took care of it. But it's a simple bit, but it's Frank Rizzo at his best, really. It was the first one I thought of when we agreed to do this bit, because the whole slapping each other with the hot mops, to me, it still is hilarious. Again, I don't know what the hell they are.
No, and yeah, I think why that's so funny to us, and I agree, man. That line, they're up there slapping each other with the hot mops, like so many of their calls, especially Frank Rizzo. Well, they all are. It doesn't matter if it's Rizzo or even the one that I'm going to say that's not Rizzo's character. They're so funny because what he's saying is so easy to visualize, and that's what makes it funny. As quick as these calls are, they paint a picture in your head that immediately what you're seeing in your head and what you're hearing, it's comedy gold. It just is.
Yeah, you're right about them being short bits. A long prank call for them on their CDs is like 2 minutes. I mean, that'd be like a long one. One of mine is actually very short. It's less than a minute long. But it was, all these years later, I remember it, and they do such a good job. Particularly Rizzo, but all the bits, they do a good job of painting a picture. And in some cases, like the roofing, the guy he's talking to, he's just laughing along with it. He probably has a feeling it's a joke. He's just the way he's laughing about it. But some of these people are shocked. They're like, who is this calling me? What is going on here?
I have one I'll get to where it's like a layer that I want to dive into a little more about the victim of the prank call. Yeah. Like what they must be thinking.
Yeah, with any of them. Well, you can go ahead with your next pick if you're ready.
Well, I'll keep the Rizzo train going, but this is the one that it is Frank Rizzo's voice, but he never says that in this call. And it's a short one, like you were just talking about. That's why I'm using it now in my next pick. The bit is called The Super Across the Way. And why I love this is even that phrase, the super, it's such a New York, like urban city reference. That you're the super for a building, like you oversee a building, basically.
Sure.
And I love it because there's just this line in this where he calls and he just jumps right into it. And this call, it accomplishes nothing. It's so vague, but yet it's so threatening, and it's so New York. If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, let me speak to Brett Weir.
Who's calling?
Is he in?
Yeah, who's calling?
Get Brett Weir, I said.
He's upstairs repairing something. You want me to call you back?
Well, this is the super across the way.
Yeah?
And he was supposed to take care of some business for me, and I'm very angry at that little jerk. All right, now I'm gonna break his fucking head.
So what do you want me to do? Get in touch with you where?
He knows what the fuck I'm talking about. And don't have me come down there for you either, tough guy.
And it's when he yells, "Get Brett Weir," I said. And I don't even know who Brett Weir is, but I will never, on my last day of breath, I will still have a knowledge of, I know who Brett Weir is, even though I don't have any idea who he is because of the Jerky Boys. I don't know why that name is even being used, unless he actually knew that that's someone that works where he was calling. And get me Brett Weir. But again, it's so threatening, and it's so just Jersey style threatening.
Sure.
From just a verbal beatdown on the phone quickly.
You wonder in cases like that if it's just like one of his friends and like, I'm going to throw my buddy's name into this call just to make him laugh when he hears it. It could be just a random name like that. But
and this is one of those prank calls where you could tell that both the Jerky Boys, Brennan and Kamal, were together. And I love that at the end of this call, you hear them laughing. It's a little just stamp that just kind of ends it, where even they cracked themselves up.
Super across the street?
You got it, punk.
Okay, I'll tell him.
I think it's about 56 seconds, and then boom, done.
Wow. Yeah, that is a great one, and it is impressive how well they hold character. They don't break their character. At least not. Obviously, maybe for all we know, they're making 4 or 5 calls until they get one that works, or until they find one that they can actually use on the CD. But on the CDs, they hold character through some pretty funny stuff, and it always seems to work.
I've always wondered this as it relates to the Jerky Boys, because again, they kind of started this. So many like comedy-based morning shows around the country started doing shit like this. Hell, even here locally in the Twin Cities, Tom Bernard, who was a titan. He'll always go down as one of the biggest radio morning show personalities in the country because of the volume of his audience per capita is like untouchable almost.
Yep.
But his team of people, his producers and cast members on the Tom Bernard show, they would do stuff like this too. And you cannot tell me or convince me that the Jerky Boys did not have an influence on that.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know if I can't think of who might have been doing it earlier than them, but you're right. That influenced them. The whole show, Crank Yankers had to be heavily influenced by the Jerky Boys.
Without a doubt.
The only difference about the Crank Yankers is it was still a prank phone call, but then after the phone call was done, they added puppets to make it visual so it could actually be a TV show, which actually was a pretty brilliant idea because as fun as it is to listen to these bits, how much would you love to be able to see like a Frank Rizzo puppet too, doing all these lines, and it would have been very, very funny.
I'll tell you what, the closest thing we've ever, not to get too off topic here, the closest thing, and you and I are huge fans to this, by the way, is the Ricky Gervais show.
Yeah.
Where it was not prank calls.
That animated one, yeah.
But they animated the stories that they're talking about.
Yeah.
On like a little miniature radio show, but it's visual because you get to see the cartoon versions of them acted out, what they're saying.
Yeah.
And it's, again, if you've never seen that, please look it up. The Ricky Gervais show that's animated. It is about as funny as TV can be.
Oh, it's hilarious. Just had a few seasons too, 2 or 3 seasons. It wasn't a whole lot of episodes, but I'd love to go back and watch that. I'm going to make a point to go back and watch that again. It's been a while. It was very funny.
Well, we've mentioned this before in previous podcast episodes that when we're getting ready to record a topic and to put our Mount Rushmore list together, and sometimes it even happens after these come out. And you've mentioned this where like, do you get an appetite to like revisit watching this movie or go back and listen to that album? Well, obviously for this one, I dove deep in the last week, 2 weeks even, listening and just overloading on Jerky Boys bits again.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, in a lot of cases, it was as if I was listening to it for the first time. Even though I knew everything that was about to be said, I was laughing my ass off.
I did the same thing, and I did a deep dive on those first 2 CDs, and you can find them all on YouTube. That's the beauty of it now.
Yeah.
It's easy to find stuff online. But the same thing. But I didn't always remember the bits. I remembered some of them stood out to me very, very clearly. Others I didn't remember that well, but when I heard them, it all came back. And again, yeah, you're right. They're funny all over again. It's hard to say if you could do this kind of thing again in today's world, like with this level of success. I don't know that you could, but
probably not.
So it's sort of like a time capsule of that 90s era that where it really did work well. They had a lot of success doing it too.
Well, and part of that is technology. It just simply won't allow this to happen anymore. I mean, this was done prior to caller ID.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And these are all landlines too, not calling someone on their cell phone. They're picking up.
These are 100% not cell phones.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we should get back to their picks here.
Please, because I'm just excited to talk about them.
For sure. My second pick is it's one from their first album in 1993. It's called Auto Mechanic. And again, it's our friend Frank Rizzo again. This time he's calling like an auto repair shop, an auto mechanic shop. And he's trying to apply for a job with them over the phone. That's what he's doing. So he's calling them saying, hey, I heard about your job. I want to work there. During the course of the conversation of him trying to get this job, he calls the guy on the phone tough guy all the time because, hey, tough guy, this is a guy he's trying to get to hire him. And then at one point he tells him he's going to come down to the shop and quote, wrap his fucking head with a ratchet.
It's the most threatening phone interview you'll ever hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, may I help you?
Calling about the job.
Where are you working now?
Well, right now, I just had to leave an old job because the difference is with my fucking boss.
Well, I'll tell you what. You can come down and see me tomorrow.
Yeah, huh? Should I bring my fucking tools?
Call me tomorrow. I don't think you can talk like that. You don't have to call me and talk to me like that.
All right, Lynn, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll come down with my tools tomorrow and I start work tomorrow.
No, wait a minute. I gotta hire you first, guy.
I'll work circles around you. I'll wrap your fucking head in with a ratchet.
And he ends up ending the call by basically telling him he's going to come down there. I'm going to come down there and I'll bring my tools because I'm the best. And he hasn't been hired, but he's assuming that he has been because he says he's going to come down there. And the last thing he says to the guy.
Okay? So I'll see you tomorrow with my tools, fuckface.
And just to remind you, this is his way of applying for a job.
I know. That's again, he's answering to a want ad, a classified, where they're looking for an auto mechanic. Yeah. And these poor bastards have to deal with Frank Rizzo calling. I love it.
And they didn't like it. They were not happy with it. I didn't even hire you. You're already going to come down and whack me with a ratchet.
Oh, God. So I'm going to keep the Rizzo train parked for a second. Because I'm going to end my anchor pick it's probably my favorite of all time. Even though everything we've talked about is epic and legendary to me. But I'm going to get off Rizzo for a second and I'm going to go with a beating. I'm sorry.
What?
I'm not going to go with a beating. I'm going to pick the bit that's called husband beating.
Oh, wow.
And even though he never gives his name in this call, it's a recurring character that the Jerky Boys have several of these bits with. Normally, he refers to himself as just Kissel.
Yes. Yeah, just the last name, Kissel.
So this is Kissel, and he's calling a divorce attorney's office, and he's basically saying, after 40 years, I want a divorce. And he starts to get into why. The highlight of why I'm picking this and putting it on the Rushmore on the mountain is I love that it's clearly Johnny Brennan as Kissel, and then in the background is Kamal, who is the wife who enters the room while this call is happening.
Yeah.
And this is what I meant earlier, that this poor woman, this receptionist at this law firm, is listening to this. And I'd give anything to hear an interview of some of these people who had to take these calls in real time. Yeah. Like, what were you thinking? Because long story short, while Kissel is complaining about his wife and she enters the room, she starts yelling at him, but she also just starts yelling things in the background that are just as funny as anything that he's saying to the person on the phone call. But it's when she takes out a knife and now she starts stabbing him on the phone call. and this poor woman, I'd give anything to know. What is she thinking?
I want a divorce.
I don't follow you anywhere.
I'm on the phone. She even hits me in front of people. I want a divorce because something.
You're a fucking liar.
Get away from me. Get away from me. God damn you, get away. I'm on the phone. You sound like
You're
a nice.
Sick.
You see what I gotta put up with?
And what's your number? I'm tired of this shit.
God damn. See, she's taking out a fucking
liar.
She's taking out a knife or something. You better get away.
Liar.
Get away from me.
You're a lying son of a bitch. You liar. Hello?
And yes, we will make sure we include this. We're not condoning domestic violence. It's not funny, but it sure as hell is in this prank call.
Yeah, it is.
I easily could have used all Frank Rizzo calls for my Mount Rushmore, but I just made it a point that I got to throw one bone to Kamal.
Yeah.
He does have such a significant role as to why the husband beating phone call is so damn funny.
They were a partnership, even though, like you said, things dissolved and fingers pointed and all that stuff. Who knows how that all went down behind the scenes? But they were partners in the early days. They most certainly were. So I would think that my guess is even when Brennan was doing the voice, like a Rizzo call, I'm guessing that Kamal was still part of the sort of the writing the bits. You know, I'm sure that they were collaborating on all that stuff.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
So even if one of them was voicing it, I'm sure they were both involved with all the bits. But so even no matter who the voice is, it's still going to be, you know, from the quote Jerky Boys, you know, and so it's always going to be good stuff.
But yeah, the husband beating, it's just a call filled with chaos.
I forgot about Kissel until this came up and I started listening to old bits.
Yeah, because there was one that they're all funny, but there's one where he calls and it's like, "Hey, this is Kissel. What time are you coming to fix my sink?" He's calling a plumber.
Yeah, because Kissel's, by the way, I don't know if you mentioned this, they're old people. Kissel and his wife are old, right? They're supposed to be like old man and old woman. Yeah.
That's what makes it funny, because after 40 years of marriage, he's making this call. So man. I had to represent, man. That one was, it's always gotten to me, and I laugh hard every time I hear it.
Well, my third pick, it's not a Rizzo, and I kind of think that this is Kamal, but I've never thought about it, actually. You referenced it earlier with the Radiohead album. It's Pablo Honey. I think that's Kamal, right?
I think that is Kamal.
Yeah, that's what I've always assumed it was, because it doesn't sound anything like the other guy. Of course.
I know for a fact that Johnny does Saul Rosenberg and Rizzo, but I think you're spot on with Pablo Honey.
Well, and so the bit of Pablo Honey, and yes, there's the Radiohead's first album is called Pablo Honey, and they took their name from the album name from this bit. It's from their second album in 1994. It's a simple bit, and it's one of their shortest bits. Like I said, this is the one I mentioned earlier. It's less than a minute long. I think it's like 50 seconds or 49 seconds long. The premise is very simple. It's a mother calling her son. And her son is Pablo, and she's asking him if he would be willing to come and visit her in Florida. That seems like a very simple request, right? It's not what's outrageous about a mother calling and asking her son to come visit her in Florida? And she's also making sure that he's keeping up with his hygiene, because she wants to make sure that he's staying clean, especially in his ass region. So that part's a little weird. I guess that's not something I normally would discuss with your mother. But
no, that part is the highlight of that call. Is when she says something like, "Are you washing your ass, Pablo?"
It's exactly what she says.
Hello?
Yeah?
Pablo, honey?
Yeah?
Please, honey, come down to Florida.
Huh?
Come to Florida, honey. We miss you.
Yeah, who's this?
You washing your ass, Pablo?
Who is this?
Keep yourself clean, honey.
Yeah?
Please come to Florida.
Who the hell is this?
Pablo?
Yeah?
You bastard.
And the person on the other end of the line is obviously confused.
But he obviously is. They found someone named Pablo to make this call to. That's the point.
Yeah, no, he's a Pablo. He's just the wrong Pablo. So this choice for me was it's a legitimate pick because it's funny. It's a funny bit. It's sort of an inside joke pick for me too. With my own buddy Mike from when I was a kid, Mike Geldert. He will appreciate this. And it's actually, now that I think about it, it's kind of ironic because the last couple of years, Mike actually moved to Florida himself. So now that I think about it, maybe now I might be his Pablo Honey. Now that I think about it, I don't know. He wants me to come to Florida, Pablo.
Puffy moved to Florida?
Puffy, visit me in Florida, Puffy.
Puffy, you better be washing your ass in Florida. Wow, that's such a fun. You're right though. Just like the Super Across the Way, it's under a minute.
Yeah. So the thing about the Radiohead connection too. This is the part that I did not know. I knew that the Pablo Honey. I knew that Radiohead had an album called Pablo Honey, and I figured it had something to do with this bit. After a little bit of research, the Radiohead album actually came out a year before the first Jerky Boys album. It came out like a whole year earlier. So the Radiohead guys were hearing the bootleg tapes that you talked about. They heard the bootlegs
from the Stern Show.
From the Stern Show, or just through the underground network somehow. I mean, they're a British band, so I don't know that they necessarily were listening to Howard Stern, but they got the tapes somehow and said, this is a funny bit. Let's name our album Pablo Honey. And there's even a little clip from the Pablo Honey bit in one of the songs on that album.
Is it really?
Yeah. I will absolutely say this publicly because I don't care. Radiohead is not a favorite band of mine.
No, they're not my flavor either. I just know that they're big and have a big following.
They are.
It's never been my, my color in the crayon box. But
I do not like them whatsoever. But I can appreciate the fact that they love Jerky Boys.
Yeah, and to the degree where they named their album after Pablo Honey.
Yeah.
That's a great bit. So I'm gonna anchor it with my favorite one. And that's such a bold thing to say. It's hard.
It was hard.
But this is this is hard to say it's my first one, or my favorite one, I should say. It is a Rizzo call. There's so many that, like, you could have gave me your list and said, hey, you have to go on the podcast and say my list as yours, and I would have been totally okay with that.
Yeah, me too.
That's how much I love these. But this is definitely the one that rises to the top, and it's probably the one that I thought of immediately, and it's fava beans. And it's Rizzo's character calling a restaurant in New York after pretending that he was there earlier and ordered their fava beans. And now he and his wife are as sick as dogs, but he says it in a lot of different, funnier ways than that.
Yeah.
And I just love how he's so aggressive. It's going back to that stereotypical New York dude who's now upset because he basically thinks he got food poisoned because of fava beans, of all things. And his attitude and aggressiveness towards this poor guy who answers the call at this restaurant. And the guy is so like quick to be like, where were you sitting? We didn't serve fava beans today.
Yeah.
Can I help you?
Yeah, is this the restaurant?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I was there a little while ago with my wife.
Uh-huh.
And we ate some of them fava beans.
Yes.
They got me fucking awful sick there, Charlie.
What fava beans?
You made me some fava beans there with the little wacky, the bread that you got there. You got me sick as a dog.
Where were you sitting?
You know, I got really sick from that shit. I ought to split your nuts from your head to the back of your ass. I got them all over coming out my ass backwards now. I'm sick like a fucking animal over here.
Just fava beans?
Yeah, the fava beans with all that silly little juice on there, you fucking wacky ass.
I just love it. I love it for this reason alone. It's such, like all of these though, like the roofing, the mechanic. It's Rizzo being Rizzo.
Yeah.
R-I-Z-Z-O.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you mentioned, the restaurant guy was like trying to help the situation. Like, yeah, where were you sitting? But they have no interest in that. They like we said earlier, he doesn't give a shit what the response is. He's just going to bowl right through it and keep going with his bit.
Yeah, he has his agenda of the bullet points of his prank call. He is going to get to him whether you're talking or not.
No matter what you have to say. Yep.
And it just so matches the imagery that I have in my head of any time I hear the voice of Frank Rizzo. I have just this image of a guy in my head, and I don't need to describe him because it's just the stereotypical person you'd see like in left field at a Yankees game.
Yes. Like those two schmucks that got tossed out of the game last in the World Series, right?
Yeah, like not the good seats between the bases.
No.
I'm talking you're in the bleachers in the outfield with these guys, and they're wearing their Yankees hat, and it's dirty, and their T-shirt is dirty, and the whole thing.
And they're hammered.
And they're greased.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. That is Rizzo to a T. So I should anchor my pick then, my list then. So I mentioned at the top that I had 2.5 Rizzos, and this is the half because it's the bit is called they call it Unemployed Painter. I love this bit. It goes back to their first album in 1993. This is 100% Rizzo talking, but for some reason he introduces himself as Mike DeRucchi. That's what he says.
Same voice, but it's now a different character name.
Exactly. Maybe he's his cousin. I don't know. But it is 100% the same voice. But technically, it's not a Rizzo bit because he says his name a couple of times in the call. So it's Mike DeRucchi, I guess. Whatever. But the point is, it's Unemployed Painter, and so DeRucchi / Rizzo is calling somebody from a want ad, and he's looking to get a job as a painter. But here, and this kind of goes back to what we said about it doesn't matter what the person on the other end of the line is saying. Because in this case, the guy on the other end of the line is an unemployed painter himself. So Rizzo is calling him, or DeRucchi's calling him to try and get a job. But at the end of the day, that guy's trying to find a job too. So everything he had planned to say is wrong because he can't apply for a job with this guy because that guy doesn't have a job either. And it doesn't matter because he just keeps going with it. He keeps pitching himself as a painter to this guy who's not going to hire him anyway. So. It's kind of
there's such a small detail of this call that he's like talking about how good of a painter he is. He paints everything. You know, he painted his car with a roller and a brush.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he goes, I even paint my nails.
Yeah. Well, then and then he says to the guy too, what? Hey, let's get together. We can paint each other up. And the guy's like, huh?
Well, it says here in the ad that you need paint work, and you got paint work and all that shit. What do we got there?
Oh, they made a mistake in that ad.
I paint my car, paint everything. I just did some job on my car. Beautiful. I used a roller there, the paintbrush came out beautiful.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, I'm good. Oh, I paint my toenails, everything. They call me Rubberneck. What do you say we get together and paint each other up?
Yeah, forget about it.
Hey, we're good like that, right? Look, any help you can give me, I appreciate it.
Yes, I will.
Okay, Sizzle Chest?
And it's kind of one of the few calls, too, where it kind of ends where they're both happy.
Well,
like
sort of.
It ends on a positive note.
One of them is confused but happy, I suppose. But
yeah, well, yeah, it's not. He's not being threatened up to the very end.
No, he really he isn't being threatened. In fact, Daruki wants to hang out with him and paint him. So it's so it's this bit is less than 2 minutes long. He calls him a fruitcake no less than 4 times in 2 minutes.
See, there it
and
is.
the guy doesn't even respond. He doesn't even seem to notice. He just keeps going on. Doesn't even care that he's being called this all the time. And the other thing about this bit and why it stood out to me is it introduced 2 phrases to me. I had never heard these 2 phrases before. One of them was rubberneck, and the other one is sizzle chest. So because he calls himself he calls himself a rubberneck, but then he calls the other guy a sizzle chest. So I've never heard those phrases anywhere else since then, especially sizzle chest. I don't know what the hell, but it kind of like what you said with your buddies and fruitcake. I remember for years and years saying sizzle chest to each other.
Exactly. That is exactly what I meant by a handful of us, specifically Mike and I. I'm telling you that these phrases and that terminology still to this day is used by us, and it is truly traceable to the Jerky Boys CD.
Yeah.
And sizzle chest, perfect example.
Yep.
You know, and like you said earlier in one of your calls, where Rizzo keeps referring to him as a tough guy.
Yeah.
Like, all right, tough guy. I think it was auto mechanic.
Yeah.
It's almost like just insert the phrase. It doesn't matter if it was tough guy, fruitcake, but then in this one, sizzle chest.
Sizzle chest comes out. Have you ever heard sizzle chest outside of the Jerky Boys in your life?
Never.
Yeah.
Unless I said it or a buddy said it. Who knows Jerky Boys?
Who stole it from the Jerky Boys? Yeah.
It is 100% credited to Jerky Boys. Like I said, they helped shape if it sounds lame or dumb to say it this way, but whatever our comedy minds are, right? Yeah. Jerky Boys influenced it.
They played a big part. You're right.
And that's why I said that at the top of the episode. I really do miss the concept of comedy albums.
Sure.
Because even before he was huge, and when I say huge, I mean it doesn't get much bigger than Adam Sandler. Agreed?
Yeah.
But some of his old comedy albums, oh my God, it's just raw, young, ambitious Adam Sandler doing stuff just like Jerky Boys.
Indeed. Yeah. Out of his mind. He had a mind for comedy, and it was whether it was bits where he's just talking to somebody and acting on a bit or singing a song. He had all these ideas in his head and wanted to put them down on a record. And yeah, he had a couple of them. So Sandler was still on SNL, I think, when he put out those comedy albums, and that was before he became a movie star. And then obviously that took him in a whole different direction, but I'd love to see him go back and do a comedy album.
Well, and that's why it just kind of shows you, like, it's kind of the same starting trajectory of a comedy career. Jerky Boys, Sandler, right? They were very neck and neck. And unfortunately, the Jerky Boys, as much as I love them, I mean, here we are, we're honoring them, doing a whole damn podcast about them.
Mm-hmm.
But they just didn't have whatever the it factor is to keep that parlaying into other opportunities. They tried, like with that movie in 95, but it bombed.
Yeah.
One thing I found interesting, doing a quick little dive on the Jerky Boys, was Johnny Brennan. He actually, and I say this because it's so relatable to what you and I literally are doing in this very moment. He had a podcast called The Jerky Boys Show, and it only lasted 17 episodes.
Did you listen? Have you heard any of them?
No.
Oh.
From what I read about it real quick, why the podcast didn't take off very well is, yes, he would play, bits and the old calls. And if you would pay him, you could get onto the podcast and then he'd do a live call, but on the podcast. And clearly this didn't take off because, again, 17 episodes in, it got canceled or he stopped doing it for whatever reason. I do know that he now makes probably somewhat of a little bit of a, side income or whatever, however you would want to work, supplemental income by Cameo.
Yeah, I read that too.
That's what, I don't know, a handful of years old now where celebrities and, people with their 15 minutes can cash in on people paying them to record video greetings.
Yeah, so you could have Frank and Rizzo insult you on Cameo, I guess, for $150, I suppose, something like that.
Maybe we should do that
maybe we should.
I wonder how much, truly, for a 60-second, hey, Frank, insult me for 60 seconds on camera.
Yeah.
Maybe we should look into that.
If we do it, podcast listener, you're going to hear it a hell of a lot because if we're going to spend money on it, we're going to use the shit out of it.
Yeah, that'll be a very, very, very used soundbite.
And if you never hear it, that's because it was too expensive and we said, no, we're not going to do it.
So this is just a fun way to just honor, again, part of the fabric that just made our adolescence and teenage years funny.
They're still funny, and that's why I don't have any honorable mentions because my honorable mentions would be pretty much every other bit on the CDs.
Yeah, and all my honorable mentions you already just talked about. They're on your Rushmore. That's why I said I could easily switch lists, and it wouldn't even bother me.
Sure.
Yeah, again, fun one. And if this really was, if you've now made it this far into the podcast, and this was your first time hearing about the Jerky Boys, and you're clearly going to hear what we play as clips from these, do what John said. Just look up the Jerky Boys on YouTube, and there's some that have master lists where all their calls are on there.
Yeah,
and just go through them. It doesn't take long, and I guarantee you, your stomach will hurt by the end of it. I promise you that because it's just classic.
Great stuff.
On this one, I didn't even bother with a sponsor because I knew with all the vulgarity, no one's going to want to be tied to this one. So
safe. That's a safe bet.
So that one being said, we'll let Frank say goodbye to everybody.
All right. See you later, Nit.